The Lob Shotgun is OP thanks to the brand new buff. Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my flak one-shot build that's going to have you guys cruising through any content that comes your way. SFA, this is LaserBolt and welcome to today's video, guys. Today we're going to be taking a look at the one-shot build for the lab, the new, not want to say new, but the buffed weapon that got introduced into Borderlands 3. We've had this weapon for quite a long time now. The only thing now happens is that now it got a major buff. And with that buff, it's made builds even more incredible. Not only that, but it's also making it a must-have meta weapon. I will have builds for each individual character, so make sure you guys subscribe to the channel so you guys won't miss those if you guys play on a different character. Before we dive into the build, I have a question from you guys. What weapon do you think should get buffed so it can become a meta? Let me know in the comment section down below. You guys do not want to miss the awesome gameplay, cool environment, and positive vibes. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitch. The link is down below so you guys won't miss the fun and the excitement. The link is down below. Alright, so now let's take a look at our skill tree. We're going to get started with we're actually going to be using elements from each one. Let's get started with the first one, which is going to be our hunter tree. Now for our hunter tree, guys, we're going to be dumping 5 points into interplanetary stalker. What this is going to do, it's going to give us a ton of damage when we convert pet, robot, and human. That's going to be the conversion of the enemies we're going to be fighting. Instead of them being regular enemies, they're just going to be converted to pets, robots, and humans. Now this is going to pair in perfectly with the hunter side, because what this is going to allow us to do, it's going to allow us to get increased critical hit damage, armor damage, and damage reduction against humans, robots, and beasts, tying in perfectly to this build. We're also going to be dumping 5 points here. Next, we're going to be dumping a total of 5 points into tvhm. What this is going to allow us to do, it's going to give us the possibility of firing an extra projectile, especially with this particular build and this particular weapon. That extra projectile is actually going to be huge. It's going to allow us to one-shot the majority of the enemies that come our way. Of course, you guys know there are some enemies that have more shields. There's also some enemies that have more phases, and also bosses. This build will work with everything, bosses and mobs as well. But right now, we're showcasing the mobs. Now, we're also going to be dumping 3 points into big game. This is a hunter skill. What this is going to allow us to do, it's going to become more effective the longer the duration has. So this is going to help us quite a lot. And this one goes in perfectly with the most dangerous game, which is what makes it really crazy. Because whenever we kill a badass, since we're going to be fighting a lot of badasses, whether we do the maliwan raid, whether we do Starter Shaft, whatever we do, there is going to be a ton of badasses. And when we fight them and kill them, our crit hit damage and our gun damage and our handling is going to get increased, which is something we definitely do like. We're going to dump 3 points there. Then we're going to be dumping 1 point into Galactic Shadow. It's going to deal increased critical hit damage. And we're also going to be dumping a total of 3 points into Grim Harvest. But this is going to increase our gun damage and our axe and skill damage, which is really, really good. On this one, technically, I would want to dump 5 points here. You know, there was those 2 additional points that I would probably dump here. But I'll tell you guys why I decided to opt away from that. And you guys could make your assessment if maybe you should dump 2 points here, or if you should just leave it at 3. Last but not least, guys, we're picking 1 point into Mega Bore. What this is going to allow us to do, it's going to give us the ability that any part that we hit on an enemy, it's going to be considered a crit hit. It's going to give us a 20% chance of actually that proccing, which should be pretty helpful and very exponential. So that is based on the hunter tree. The only other thing that we're picking up here, of course, is our rack attack. We're also going to be picking up the rack open and cold, which is going to convert our racks into cryo damage. And we're also going to be picking the Falconer's Feast, which is going to give us health. It's going to restore our health. In addition to that, guys, we are picking up the Spider Rant, and this is going to allow us to regenerate a couple of health. And the good thing about here, it's going to increase our elemental damage. This weapon only has elementals, so we want to have a lot of elemental damage here as well. Now let's go on and take a look at the Master Tree. Now for the Master Tree, guys, we're going to be picking up 3 points into Persistence of Hunter. What this is going to allow us to do, it's going to increase our gun damage and our action skill duration. So we're getting a big buff in our action skill duration, plus 45. Our gun damage is getting plus 12, which is really good, because the more damage we're able to output the gun, the more likelihood we're going to have to get that one shot. Then we're going to be dumping 2 points into Go for the Eyes. What this is going to give, it's pretty much going to be helping our pet. The first melee attack will be automatically considered a crit hit by our pet, which is really good. And then we have 5 points into Who Rescued Hugh. What this is going to allow us to do, it's going to, whenever Flak's pet deals damage, Flak's regenerates health for a few seconds. So if our pet's doing damage, we're regenerating health with that damage that our pet is doing, which is really good. And we're dumping 5 points into Frenzy, another hunter skill. Whenever our pet deals damage, and basically we'll get a stack of Frenzy, which is going to increase the damage. That is pretty much everything we're picking up in the Master Tree. Next up, we're going to go into the Stalker Tree, and we're going to pick up 1 point into Self-Repairing System. This is the one that I'm telling you guys that you don't really need to have a point here. This is only going to be to give you a little bit more of survivability. If you feel that you're doing A-okay with this build and you're not, dying, then you do not have to dump a point here. You can leave that point, blank and dump the 2 points into the other one that gives you more gun damage. The ones you do want to pick up is the 5 points to Ferocious Attack on Hunter skill. After shooting an enemy, we gain a stack of Ferocious Attack. What this is going to do is for each stack, it's going to increase our handling and our gun damage plus 2. And it stacks up all the way up to 10. So technically, we could get up with 20 damage with our weapon if we stack it correctly. Next, we're going to be dumping 1.2 all my BFFs. What this is going to do, it's going to give a portion of Flak's total health regeneration and back and forth. So it's going to be very helpful. This is the other one that you don't have to dump a point in. You could definitely use those 2 points, which I mentioned earlier, and get that gun damage. The next up, guys, we're going to be doing a total of 3 points into Overclocked. What this is going to do, it's going to increase our fire rate. Now, the fire rate is really important for this particular build because the faster we're able to shoot the projectiles out of the lob, the faster we're going to be able to cause that damage to the enemies. One key thing I want to give you guys, which I will tell you guys once we get into the gear, is you got to know how to shoot the weapon. But with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the gear. All right, so here we are, guys, within our gear. Now, of course, you guys see the main star of the build, of course, is the lob. I like to call this the Lobo, actually, but I think primarily this is what you guys are definitely going to want to look for. Now, one thing you want to know, the lob that gets the most damage is the Cryo lob. The other ones have really good damage, but the Cryo is the one that has the most damage out of all of them. So you're definitely going to want to make sure you get a Cryo. That's why my Sane build is extremely amazing with this weapon. You guys are definitely going to fall in love with that once you guys check that out. I will definitely go ahead and be uploading that this week, so make sure you guys don't miss that. But yeah, this is the star. You're able to get this corrosive, cryo, shock, radiation, and fire. You're going to be able to get these in all the variants. And the main thing you want to be looking for, depending on what you're playing, is on action skill and weapon damage is increased. That's going to be very helpful for the majority of the builds for this one. But for Flak, you're either looking for on action skill and weapon damage is increased by 100 for a short period of time, or you want to look for enemy damage by rack attack, take 100 increased damage for a short period of time. Those are the two best anointments you could possibly get for the lab for this particular build. But overall, in general, you want to make sure you get a lab. If you're asking, where can I actually get this weapon? Graveyard is your best friend. That is where you're going to be able to pick up this weapon. It usually drops quite often. And with this particular build, or with any of my other builds, I actually have another Flak one-shot build. If you run that one, it should make farming super easy. I'll leave a link down below in the description. That pretty much covers the weapon. You only need one. You guys should be good to go with any other one. Now, let's take a look at the gear set. For our shield, we're using the Transformer. This one actually pairs very, very well with a shock damage lob. Or the reason why is because our Transformer is going to allow us to regenerate our health, or regenerate our shield, I should say. So if we're using a shock damage lob, then our shield is going to be constantly regenerating because we are going to be getting hit by that shock. So you're definitely going to want to make sure you guys pick that one. The reason why I didn't have gameplay with that one is because I didn't have the perfect anointment and I didn't have a level 53. So you're definitely going to want to look for a level 53 and a good anointment with shock. It's going to make this build even more crazier because you'll be able to get your shield back as you're shooting the weapon. Now, as far as the grenade is concerned, I'm running a recurring hex. The reason I'm running this one is because this is a cryo damage one, which is going to help me freeze the enemy, give me nice crowd control. And I'm running with this one with the anointment on grenade throw. Basically, your grenades, your action skill damage, and your weapon is increased by 25% for 6 seconds. This actually does help out a lot. This allows us to one-shot almost anything regardless of how many bar stats they have within this particular build, as long as you're playing it right, which I'll explain how you want to play with this build as we finish the whole gear. next up, guys, we're running of course, the Bounty Hunter. Now, this one right here, it's a +5 on Hunter. You're going to want to make sure you get the +5. That's going to be best. If you don't have on, it doesn't really matter, but the +5 one is definitely one you want to get. Now, I'm running this one with a +28 splash damage because we want to increase this damage we're able to output with our lob. We're running that with a 31 shotgun damage and a +25 weapon damage, which is pretty much a godly roll for this particular build, and I highly recommend you guys definitely pick this one up. Really good one to have. In addition to that, guys, we're landing the last stand auto idle. Basically, any idle would be perfect for this particular build. As long as you have anything that gives you good survivability, has really good splash damage, and has really good weapon reload, or basically splash damage or weapon reload is what you're looking for here. This is not like the best one you could run, but basically any auto idle would work perfectly. You guys see me running through this. It's I'm breezing through the content with this particular artifact. If you had a better one, you still will be doing even more damage. Now, how do you want to play with this build? Let's go ahead and talk about that. In order for you guys to be super duper effective for this build, there are a couple things you want to make sure you always have in the back of your head. First things you want to do is throw your rack attack if you guys have on action skill end. The reason why you want to make sure that action skill ends so you could get that 100% weapon damage. Now, if you're running the rack attack build, you could usually just spam that and you guys should be good to go. So the first thing you want to do is throw your rack attack. After you throw your rack attack, you want to throw your grenades because you want to get that additional 25% damage. And then you want to shoot the lab. That is basically the way you want to play with this particular build. Now, one thing you want to make sure is that when you're shooting the weapon, you're actually shooting the weapon looking at the ground. The reason why is because when the gun hits the ground, it's going to cause splash damage and it's going to kill the enemy. If you're shooting it like directly at people, you're going to be shooting a lot of the orbs that are not going to be hitting the enemy, making the enemy harder to kill. So you want to make sure you shoot the weapon at the ground, so when it hits, it automatically kills the enemy. There's a couple times where you don't shoot the ground, you're not going to be getting that one shot because there are projectiles that are not missing or hitting on point. And there you guys have it. That is pretty much the one-shot lob build. I will have other builds for Amara, Mose, and Zane. Make sure you guys keep it locked on this channel, and I will catch you guys on the next video.